So I was thinking of opening this review with the whole joke of how I went to this movie thinking I was gonna go find a job because the movie's called Jobs, so they must have jobs, but then I would be sorely disappointed that I thought to myself, that's way too easy. And there's one thing Steve Jobs wasn't about, he wasn't about the easy path. Lesson learned. Hey guys, the Black Critic Guy here today to give you the review of the biopic film of Steve Jobs' life, aptly named Jobs. So the plot of Jobs is pretty much self-explanatory. It chronicles the early life of Steve Jobs and when he founded Apple, and his struggle to make the company great and keep it in his control. Now I really wanted to see this film for one reason and one reason alone. That was for Ashton Kutcher's portrayal of Steve Jobs. I mean, he already looks like a younger Steve Jobs, so I wanted to see if he would bring his A game, go all out with his performance. And I gotta say, he did not disappoint. I thought he gave the best performance in his entire life. I mean, he just embodied every characteristic that I ever heard about Steve Jobs, whether it be in a book or from somebody telling me. He was ambitious, he was charismatic, he was very harsh to people. I was very proud of Ashton Kutcher. He really went all out and he gave a stellar performance. In fact, his performance carried this entire movie, which makes sense because the movie is called Jobs and it revolves around Steve Jobs' life. So the guy who's portraying Steve Jobs is gonna have to carry most of the weight of this movie, and he did a fantastic job of doing so. But that's not to say that Ashton Kutcher was the only one that did a fine job in this film. The rest of the ensemble cast also brought their A game as well. They all did very well, especially the guy who played Wozniak. I believe his name is Josh Gad. And I really love the dynamic relationship between Jobs and Wozniak. They really complement each other in the fact that they are two polar opposites. I mean, here we have Wozniak, who's basically the brains of the organization. He came up with the software himself, but he didn't know how to sell it. He didn't know how to present it to a consumer in order for them to buy it. That's where Jobs came in. He had the charisma and he had the ambition to sell a product, and bringing the two together made them an unstoppable force. The writing story to me was pretty solid, although I think a lot of people might feel like it ripped off of The Social Network. I mean, some elements of the story are very similar to the elements in Social Network, and I'm not gonna lie, when I was watching the movie, it kind of gave me that feeling of The Social Network. I mean, if you just cut it down to its story structure, it is very similar to The Social Network, but it didn't bother me because I felt like the story was well executed. And one thing that I really appreciated about this film is how they didn't glamorize the person that was Steve Jobs. They didn't falsely portray him. They didn't always make him look like a good guy or make him seem like he was always the innovator. He was a really hard person to work with. He had a very terrible anger. He was a perfectionist, and they really highlight that very well in this film. And the last thing that I really liked was the music choices and the score. The score was very uplifting and inspiring. When you hear Steve Jobs giving this speech to a bunch of people, or when he's making a presentation, you just hear that score rising in the background and just feels so epic and inspiring. And some of the music choices, I actually liked those songs and I looked them up immediately after the movie. Now I did have a couple of problems with this film. The first one being is that this film is a very tongue-in-cheek biopic. And what I mean by that is that it has every hallmark that you could see in any given biofilm, down to the inspirational speech and score to the happy ending of the character getting what he wanted or what she wanted in the end. It follows the same playbook and brings nothing really new to the table, thus making it a cliche biopic. A well done cliche biopic, but still cliche. In the same vein as how the movie portrayed Steve Jobs really being interested more into the product than in the people working on the product, this film seemed more interested in Steve Jobs, the creator of Apple, instead of Steve Jobs, the person. They really didn't delve into his personal or social life. They really focused more on his work life, which was portrayed accurately, but I would have loved a more deeper understanding of Steve Jobs, the person outside of Apple. What was he feeling? The traumatic situations that he was going through, the loneliness that he felt. They kind of portrayed that a little bit in the film, but then it's just disregarded after a while. And the last real problem that I have with this film is I really would have loved for them to show the other things that Steve Jobs contributed to the world. I mean, yes, most of his work was focused at Apple, but he did a lot of other things as well, especially in the period that this film takes place in. I mean, they don't even mention once that he was one of the people that founded Pixar. I mean, that's kind of a big deal right there. I mean, you could make the argument that because Disney owns the brand of Pixar, they couldn't show it on the screen, but they could have subtly referenced it. And also going hand in hand with not showing the other works of Steve Jobs, the way that the film ended was a bit disappointing because they don't really show what he did after 1996 onward. I mean, the struggle of the early years of Apple and Steve Jobs keeping control of his company, that makes for a compelling story, but I really would have loved to see more of what he did after he became CEO. I mean, hell, if it dealt with the length of the movie, they could have just montaged through the whole thing and I would have been fine. I would have loved to see all the things he did from 1996 onward. He did some fantastic things and they kind of don't address it. They end it at a point that has a very inspiring speech at the end, but I would have loved to see what he did after he became a CEO. But overall, Jobs is a very well done biopic and Ashton Kutcher gives a performance of his lifetime, and I really hope that he gets more dramatic roles and he gets more respect in Hollywood because he is a really good actor. If you give him the right role and you give him the right motivation and director, he can give you a fantastic performance. I hope to see more of him, and that's why I'm going to give this film a 4 out of 5 stars. I definitely think it's worth watching for fans of Steve Jobs who want to know more about Steve Jobs and who are fans of Ashton Kutcher. You definitely should go check it out. But anyway, what did you guys think of this film? Did you like it a lot? Did you feel like it was another run-of-the-mill biopic that you really didn't care about? And let me know, what is the best and worst performance you've ever seen from Ashton Kutcher? Comment below, let me know. Also, go check out my 100 video on my review of Kick-Ass 2 with special guest TN Showbiz. It's a really fun video. Go check it out. And speaking of checking something out, go check out my Facebook fan page. Link will be in the description. Be sure to like it, tell your friends about it. I'll be putting a ton of posts up there, recommendations, anime reviews, movie reviews, what have you. There's going to be a lot of exciting things coming to that page. But until then, guys, hit that subscribe button. If you're new to my channel, welcome to the Black Critic Guy. Like this video if you really enjoyed it, and I'm Tony Wilder II from the Black Critic Guy. Till then, peace, YouTube.